All right. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Sensical Politics, where common sense meets politics. I'm your host, Spencer Sepper. Joining me tonight is
Tyler McDonald,
Jeffrey George,
and Jeremy Holt.
And we got a lot of interesting things lined up tonight. First off, we got Trump's State of the Union, which was this week. Was it good or bad? We'll see. The approval ratings may tell. We're going to be talking about the abortion bill that was rejected in Congress, I believe. I don't know if it was Senate or the House. We'll talk about that. We're going to be talking about Mueller's investigation into Donald Trump, as well as the FISA courts. And we're also going to be talking about an interesting question about government intervention. Should brothels be legal in the United States or not? So we have all that lined up tonight. The first thing is the State of the Union address. We'll just go around. Jeremy, how do you think President Trump performed in his first public constitutional duty of addressing the country as president?
Like pretty much everything he does. There's a little bit of things that I think that could be better, such as the kind of programs he was suggesting. I'm not really too keen on just spending money into infrastructure, because our country's infrastructure generally it's not crumbling, as Trump likes to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Along with spending.
Well, Trump likes building things, right?
Yes, he does. Along with other things, such as building a wall and stuff like that. I'm not exactly keen on it, but overall, for like unity purposes and making good messaging, I feel like it was on point.
Okay. Jeffrey, what do you think? How did you like it, or what you heard of it? Because I know some of us didn't have time to watch the whole thing.
I actually did watch pretty much all of it. So,
oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. No, I actually did think he did a really good job. I think people kind of underestimate the way our president kind of I don't know, he has he's pretty eloquent when he speaks. It was kind of surprising. People think of him as kind of like this brash freaking dude that, just comes off as like a loose cannon and, but he definitely knows how to speak. But as far as kind of like what he was proposing and the things that he was talking about, I kind of am on par with what Jeremy said. And
also, for those who are wondering, Geoff is not in his broom closet like Harry Potter. He's actually at work right now.
Yeah, thank you for that.
All right, Tyler, what was your opinion on it? Did you watch it first off?
Well, I listened to it. I didn't really.
All right, so your opinion doesn't matter. On to the next thing.
Well, I did. So, I mean, overall, I think it was decent. I feel like pretty much all the State of the Unions that I've really listened to are mainly like fluff. Like 80% of it's kind of like fluff, thanking people, applause, and things that we should really already know about the speaker. So I don't really know if anything that was too interesting was said. I mean, I like what he had to say, but I pretty much knew most of it already. One thing I will say is I do like how he chose like a bunch of like really positive topics that most people could really agree on, but then the Democrats were kind of probably already planning on not standing up, not really applauding, just keeping like that sour look on their face. So even when Trump was saying something that like everyone should agree on, they're all like, I'm not going to stand up and I'm not going to applaud. I'm not going to do any of these things. So I thought that was a little bit funny just to see how their platform literally is just anti-Trump at this point. They don't stand on anything. It's literally just being anti-Trump. And I really think the State of the Union showed that off. But overall, I'd probably give it like a B when compared to other State of the Union in general.
You were mentioning Democrats sitting whenever Trump said stuff that we all should agree on. Here's a picture of them, the Black Caucus, and Democrats alike. All sitting whenever Trump said that black unemployment was at the lowest rate ever.
Exactly.
And they still refuse to.
Well, yeah, actually, my favorite thing about that was whenever PolitiFact did their fact checking, it might have been PolitiFact, it might have been some other kind of site, but they were like, is black employment at the lowest rate? And they showed a graph, and it's like, well, it started declining during Barack Obama's presidency. And it's like, that means it's true, though.
Yeah.
Like Trump didn't exactly claim like responsibility for it. He just said like it's at its lowest rate, and that's a fact. And then they're just like,
Trump has come out and say, due to my policies, black unemployment's at the lowest.
He said
rate,
that elsewhere, but not in the State of the Union.
Yeah, true. Which I don't get. I don't get how any policies can help a specific race unless it's a racist policy. If it says you must hire a certain amount of black people, that's a policy that's helping black people, but that's a racist policy. So that's why I don't really care for race that much.
Yeah, it doesn't
except
matter.
for whites.
It doesn't really matter.
You can't say that on air.
It's one of those kind of messaging things. Like, hey, this group of people that like never votes Republican, maybe they should reconsider their wide race political leanings, so to speak.
Right. Well, actually, a recent poll by Politico says that Trump's, after his State of the Union speech, his approval rating. Well, first off, the general Americans, 75% thought that the State of the Union speech was positive, which basically makes sense because Trump was basically just praising all the good stuff, not mentioning any of the stuff that needs to be worked on. So obviously people are going to like that. But it actually made Trump's approval rating go up to 42%, according to Politico, which is actually closest to the highest it's been since the inauguration, which, I mean, it might be a little too early to tell for re-election, but I think it's definitely going to help in the 2018 elections for Senate and stuff like that.
Here's what I would say about the whole idea behind those polls. I'd like to see if they start to go up around April, when the whole tax bill really comes into effect and people start noticing it when the new policies come to change. And I'm already a little bit wary of these sort of polls and surveys, things like that. So if it doesn't start to go up when people actually have a noticeable effect in their paycheck, I'm going to start doubting them even more on some level. That's just me.
Yeah, the approval ratings for the actual tax bill itself have been fairly low, but they've been going up very steadily. The disapproval rating's been about the same, but the approval rating's gone up by about 20 percentage points.
I also will credit that to people just not knowing what the tax bill is. They just see the headline and it's a tax cut for the rich, and that's all they know, which is not true at all. It makes me annoyed.
Yeah, I just saw like this headline earlier today, and it was like, 87% of the wealth that was created in 2017 went to the top 1%. But that was just the headline. But if you actually read the article, they were talking about the top 1% worldwide. So pretty much most of the Americans who were reading that were part of that 1%, right? Because pretty much like 80% of Americans fall within the top 1% of the world. And most first world countries really do fall within that. So I just thought that was funny how they kind of,
twisted it.
Yeah, and misled the public.
I was in my economics class for the first class, and she just mentioned the pay gap, not really anything, or the wealth gap, I mean, between the 1% and the middle class and stuff like that, and how it's growing. And she didn't say anything super controversial, except that she kind of had the connotation that it was a bad thing. And I just simply said, like, oh, well, maybe the people that are innovating and making all of our products, like everyone's cell phone, maybe they should be getting all the wealth. And that was controversial, and I felt I lost a couple, not friends since I didn't know anyone, but I don't know, allies. And
can't lose friends if you don't have any, man.
Yeah, so that's a good time to say it. Say your controversial stuff, because I know. Saying someone who makes the iPhone should have more money than someone who works at my job.
Well, it's not even about like who should have money. It's just like, did you earn it? If the answer is yes, it's your money and it's no one else's business how much you have of it or how you got it, as long as you got it through legal means and you didn't, steal someone else's wealth.
I never really did understand people's obsession, especially the left's obsession with other people's money. It's like, I want to see your tax returns. Why?
Yeah.
Why? It's none of your damn business. Okay. It's like, it's my money.
Yeah.
It's not your money. It's my money. Leave my money alone. None of your business. How do you feel people are going through your freaking tax returns? They're like, I want to see what's in it. Dude, it's none of your damn business. Get out my tax returns.
Yeah. It's crazy how, and then they see you're making more than them and they think that they're entitled to your money because you're making more than them.
Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of a lot of the loopholes that are possible to exploit, that's why they kind of want to look at your tax returns and things along those lines. But the thing is that that could already be legal in the sense of where like those taxes shouldn't exist. So from like the libertarian standpoint, it's like, well, they're not really doing anything like morally wrong because I mean you were stealing from them. I mean,
Yeah,
I know people would disagree with that.
and it's weird to think that you should have your own money. All right, well, just moving right along. The abortion bill was recently voted down in the Senate. Am I correct on that? 20 weeks.
Yes, the Senate went pretty much down partisan lines. There were a couple of Republicans and Democrats that defected. But overall, it needed 60 votes to pass. And
what was the bill?
The bill was to ban abortions across the union after the 20-week point, which is where scientists agree where babies can begin to feel pain.
And I don't know too much about, or I'm pretty sure abortion's legal up to it leaving the womb currently, right?
Not necessarily. It's somewhere around.
Is it a statewide thing? Isn't it a state based?
It's the third trimester.
State. Is it different per state? Is there a federal law on it?
There is I believe in most states, it's like the third trimester is about where it's cut off, but different states have different.
But the third trimester is like 5 months in or something. So the 20-week is pretty serious.
Serious on the standpoint that's a very big gap between the former rules and these rules. However, most modern countries have that rule with certain exceptions like Canada, who have abortion on demand. The UK, France, Germany all have abortion banned at like 14 weeks.
Wow.
That's interesting. So obviously the four of us, it would be great to have someone that disagreed with us on, but the four of us are pretty pro-life, I think. So just assuming that, is it the government's job to create these or federal government's job to create these laws, or should it be up to the state? The federal government shouldn't have any laws over when you can have an abortion. What do you guys think? Jeffrey, what do you think?
Oh man, you're killing me. Yeah, put me on.
Well, just state. Should it be state or federal?
Okay. I think state, laws that the state should be allowed to make should be laws that aren't exactly explicitly detailed in the Constitution, right? So abortion, in my opinion, goes against the Constitution because everyone has the right to the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, life being that major one. And when you have an abortion, you are taking somebody's right to life away from them. So I would say, yeah, I have absolutely no issue with the federal government having ruling on abortion as a whole, banning it outright because it is a constitutional issue, in my opinion.
Interesting. Okay. Tyler, do you disagree? Tyler?
I would agree. I generally am all for individual rights, and then if not that, then states' rights, and then if not that, then the federal government can step in. But the thing is that the Constitution does protect. Technically, law in general should just be to protect both the rights of property and the rights to life. And I think that's one law that should exist.
So they're not overstepping their bounds.
No. The purpose of law is to protect those things and of every individual. And I believe that a fetus or an unborn baby is an individual, and so their right to life and their right to property if you want to call their own body property, or if you just want to call them life, then either way, they need to be protected.
Yeah, I would agree too. Jeremy, same take?
The Constitution does protect everyone's right to life, as well as sort of enshrining the idea that everyone is innocent in sort of the eyes of the creator. So you can't pass judgment on something that has yet to be, life that has yet to be able to prove itself in any way, shape, or form. Is innocent, and thus you cannot pass judgment of death upon it simply because it is inconvenient to you, or any of the other myriad of reasons that people give for having an abortion. And as such, this is something that the federal government has to look at, not just being able to enforce an abortion ban, but also to give resources possibly whilst the transition occurs to be able to make sure that there are less single mothers out there, less individuals who are making these poor decisions, better education, so that way people know exactly what they're getting into whenever they decide to make poor relationship decisions, and such around that. And considering that we are still a little bit far away, given that Roe v. Wade is still a Supreme Court decision that has yet to be overturned, I
It was the
believe
anniversary of that a couple days ago.
Yeah. So I believe right now, states curbing that right by weeks and weeks and weeks. A couple states have already approved a 20-week abortion ban. Pennsylvania, whenever Senator Bob Casey, the original one, not Bob Casey Jr. now, whenever he was our governor, he was very famous for being a pro-life Democrat. That all that stuff takes into the effect that states' rights in this regard are very important, because states will be able to push the fight while the federal government is sort of in gridlock.
All right, cool. I think we all pretty much agree on that. This next topic, I'm not too, aside from the FISA courts, I am a little bit, but the Mueller investigation is still going on, basically investigating President Trump. Still no evidence for anything, but it kind of brings up the interesting things that's coming out. The constitutionality of FISA courts, which FISA courts, I actually don't want to give a bad definition to it. So Tyler has a pretty good synopsis of what those are. Tyler, if you want.
Okay, so when it comes to FISA courts, my understanding is pretty much they're secret courts that federal agencies and federal people involved with the federal government can present these FISA warrants to, with just a collection of hundreds and thousands of names of individuals and a bit of information about those individuals. And they can ask the FISA judges for a warrant, a universal warrant that allows us to, or that allows the government to spy on any of these individuals. So instead of the courts having to individually have to look at each one of these people and decide that, yes, you should have a warrant to be able to investigate this person and this person and this person and this person one at a time. They just do it all at once, and it is rather unconstitutional. I mean, it goes against pretty much the Bill of Rights. And so part of the reason why, I mean, you guys have probably heard like the whole like hashtag release the memo thing. Apparently it has something to do with the FISA courts and how it has been misused in the past. And my understanding of possibly some of the stuff involved in it is that someone either on the Hillary Clinton campaign or their team or their staff or someone in the Obama administration used the FISA courts to investigate. Use the FISA courts to approve an investigation that was unconstitutional upon either someone on the Trump staff, which is kind of what led to the investigation, or onto Pence, or, I mean, even Trump himself. And so that's kind of the hintings that I've heard about what's possibly in the memo. And, just in general, the courts are unconstitutional. So that's so I'm just saying, if the memo does come out, I wonder, what's up?
Well, I was just saying,
I was going to say,
I believe that the FISA courts were kind of created, or at least became public, or not public, but used more frequently after the Patriots Act, after 9/11 came out. And that kind of like begs the question between the privacy versus internet, or privacy versus like international security. So you would argue that even if the FISA courts stop terrorism, which there hasn't really been any proof, or I don't know if I can say that, but even if it stopped terrorism, would you still be against it? Just simply because it's unconstitutional?
Yes, I think I would still be against it, just because something like stops something bad. If it's like, okay, it's like the whole idea of like, oh, do the ends justify the means? And I really don't think, I think that's a dangerous road to go down when you start saying that, that the ends justify the means.
Especially when you're infringing on constitutional rights. I would agree with
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Jeremy,
no,
Jeffrey,
it's
do you go?
especially Bill of Rights too. Yeah, no, it's pretty important. So my main issue with that, or my main point, is that I wonder if once the memo is released, if it is something along those lines where someone on the Hillary Clinton campaign was using the FISA court unconstitutionally to spy on the Trump campaign, or someone on the Trump team. I wonder if it'll kind of like just cast a shade upon the entire Mueller investigation and sort of weaken any results that might come out of it, or just discourage any sort of further investigation. Because I mean, I at least have a personal feeling that I don't think it's going to really last much longer.
But this is the second private investigation too. The first one was what's his name? That Trump fired. Never mind. Jeremy.
It's
Jeffrey.
all along the same lines, though. Like they're interconnected. Like it's not like
yeah. Nice.
Whoops, sorry.
Does anyone else want to give any issues or top ideas on this topic?
Wait, so Jeremy, you're saying by your silence you're fine with being spied on?
Yeah. So the thing about that is the specific thing that we're referencing when we're talking about unconstitutionality in regards to this is the fact that we are all protected by the Bill of Rights from unwarranted seizures, meaning that what, Tyler?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm referring to. Yeah, the entire amendment.
Yeah, so no policeman, no soldier, National Guard, whatever, can just come into your house and be like, hey, we're going to take a look at your things, or hey, we're going to arrest you, so that way they can figure out something on some investigation or whatever. And that's the whole idea in personal freedom. And so, yes, it does hinder, in effects, the ability for a nation state or any other type of organization of government to be able to find terrorists or even, detect crime. But it is not worth it to sacrifice everyone's individual liberties to be able to find, sift through all this data and find who is bad. That's not exactly something that we're keen on in the free world. If this were some kind of autocracy, then yeah, the ends justify the means. If this were the regime in North Korea, yes, absolutely, because subversion by information is something that is very important for that kind of regime. But for America, we pride ourselves on being able to have freedom, and people being able to, in wide swaths, find information on anyone, even if they're not using it. If they're just able to collect tons and tons of information, this is going to be used badly. This is going to be used against political opponents.
Yeah.
This is going to be used
like it has been, or
it might have
allegedly.
been. Yeah,
it's going to be used against different countries. There was a scandal a couple of years ago because Germany found out that America was spying on them, like their top government officials or whatever.
Yeah.
That's not okay. We
Although,
can't
would you say people in the other countries have constitutional rights?
Well,
technically no.
Well, technically by law, no. But we all believe as Americans that everyone has these rights intrinsically as humans. But that still doesn't mean it's right to spy on other people.
Yeah, I feel like it's just kind of common decency at that point. You know what I mean? You don't, honestly, if you're spying on your allies, are they really your allies?
Okay, well, that's an interesting thing. Interesting topic. Are the Bill of Rights the inalienable rights that everyone's born with?
Yes, I would say so. At least the first two.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think. Well, neither of the first two really addressed like the FISA courts, but I mean, all of the. I'm pretty sure the entire Bill of Rights, like the idea behind it, is that they are your unalienable rights. I mean, they are technically possible to be amended, but
They
like
won't be.
What's
Tyler,
up?
watch your thumb. Yeah. What were you saying, Jeremy? They won't be?
Yeah, they won't be. The whole idea, as Tyler's right, the whole idea behind the Bill of Rights is that, it was a compromise between the two individual camps whenever we were making the government. It was like, so we had the pro-constitutionalists. They were like, hey, we don't need a Bill of Rights because the Constitution already like says this stuff somehow in some way. And these other people who were initially against a constitution and a stronger union are like, no, we need explicit details on the rights of individuals. And so the Bill of Rights was created that are these rights that, although they stick into the process of, yes, they can be amended, they are things that Americans ought to consider, and certainly our founding fathers considered, rights that could never be taken away. And in addition to that, the only amendment that's ever been overturned was the one prohibition on alcohol. So if that tells you anything, it's not going to ever be amended.
Yeah.
Liberals, you can eat your heart out. You're never going to get the gun. Second Amendment.
I do need to head out now. But good talking to you guys about this. The FISA courts are a thing that I do kind of care about because they are pretty unconstitutional. But so it's good talking to you guys. I'm sure we'll do this next Thursday.
And you'll have more time next Thursday.
Yeah. All right. I'll see you guys. Yeah, we'll try to. Yeah, we'll try to.
I'm sure you have something very important you have to do.
I do. Yes. Okay. All right. Take care.
Bye. All right. Well, that kind of brings us to the last topic, which is kind of fun, I think. Should brothels be legal in the United States? Let's give my take on it. Yes, and basically the reason is because I don't think that the laws or the government has a right to tell you what you are allowed to do, basically, and what you're allowed to buy. Maybe a less libertarian way would say that you have to restrict it to a certain building, like in the old, Roman days and stuff like that. But I just like hearing what other people say. Or is there a good reason that I'm overlooking that this isn't?
I actually know a little bit of data on this, believe it or not. I don't remember what kind of internet rabbit hole I got myself into, but I know a little bit about this. So, prostitution has been legalized in different countries at different points in history. Obviously, way back in the day, there wasn't really a way to get rid of them because they were a political vice.
Yeah.
Politicians would have countless mistresses, and so brothels, they'd be restricted to some certain buildings. Even in our own country, New York, there was this one district, the red light district, that used to just be completely just all these strip clubs and places where you could buy prostitutes, but they had to change that because they didn't want like an entire place filled with that. Now it's like only a certain limited number of buildings can be like that in a certain area. But anyways, erroneous. The important detail about this is, so this used to be legalized in Sweden. Prostitution and brothels used to be legalized in Sweden up until I think around the year 2000-ish.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That recent.
Yes, and the reason why is because of pimps, basically. So they found that with prostitution legal, more and more women were being enslaved against their will.
Well, and making it illegal stop that?
Making it illegal, in fact, allowed them to track down on that and actually be able to figure out who exactly was sort of enslaved in a way, who was being human trafficking.
Yeah.
That was the biggest issue, because they weren't able to keep track of these women who were being taken from their homes. They weren't be able to keep track of women who were just like being exported out of the country even. So with it being illegal, they were actually able to track down on that. And right now in Germany, human trafficking, because prostitution has been legalized, is a massive problem.
Well, just to kind of play devil's advocate, like you could apply the same logic that you're using there to like guns. So because a certain amount of people abuse the right to bear arms, should we make it illegal just because of that? In the same way, because people abuse the brothel like they did in Sweden, should we take away a person's right to sell something and someone else's right to buy something that they want just because it's abused by people? Just to kind of play devil's advocate, because I don't really disagree with you, but
the problem is like it's not something that can actually be fixed, with gun control and things like that. Lots of the problems with guns arise from the fact that people are stupid. That's most of the problems. Obviously, there are many people who are mentally ill, but most of the problems with guns are that people just like don't have the proper training. In regards to prostitution and the issue that happened in Sweden in particular, there are other examples elsewhere that I just don't have on hand.
Yeah. So basically, by making it illegal, you were able to track down on the abuse of it more.
Yes, because that is a giant human rights issue, and I'm sure everyone would agree that women and children across the world who are being forcibly enslaved and then used as objects throughout their lives is not exactly an optimal trade-off for people being able to sell their bodies if they want to. Whereas, they can do that in other ways because porn is legal and porn is very safe, as well as, like other sort of jobs, like
that's interesting. Yeah.
Like the porn industry is now like also on gaming sites like twitch.tv, instead of stripping, they just, you know how it is.
Yeah.
That's something I didn't know. That kind of disturbs me a little bit, but okay.
Yeah, you're just browsing some game stream and then you're like,
I just wanted to watch someone play PUBG. That's all I was wanting.
Yeah, they're called titty streamers, but
and then you see their little the game screen is in the little corner of the screen. You can't even see what's going on.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But yeah. That's the whole thing. Is like, is it worth it trading off all of those people's human rights?
Right. Yeah, and it is a little different than the guns.
Yeah, it's kind of a tricky issue too. Also,
for one, yeah. Go ahead.
I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things where I think it shouldn't necessarily be federally illegal. It's kind of like one of those things, like the comment that I made a while back that you guys put on Twitter with that kind of thing, where like the state should be allowed to kind of choose individually whether or not they want to make, like for example, like Nevada, like in Reno, there are instances in which that they can do that.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, okay. He's at work, so sometimes people are coming in. But
yeah,
I see how it's a little different than the guns, because yeah.
Yeah, like I agree with you on principle, sure.
Right.
That everyone should be allowed to sell.
But just the reason it's abused and at such a drastic measure, it kind of doesn't, especially when it's not explicitly said in the Constitution you have a right to sell your body.
Yeah,
or maybe it does. I don't know.
It's just
28th Amendment.
Yeah, but it just arises from that problem that there's massive amounts of people that just end up losing their autonomy. That's one of the biggest problems in the Middle East, and that's something that like people in the army complain about a lot. Is that they have to sort of take a blind eye to these harems that these like Middle Eastern princes and generals have, like of just children, little boys and girls.
Right.
That they're just able to fetishize and use as sex slaves whenever they want to. And it's completely legal. So
it's strange. Yeah. I don't know. I just thought that would be an interesting question. We're kind of out of time right now. But is there any last words from you, Jeffrey? Any last words? Anything interesting this week or anything like that? Wait, what time is it for you right now?
What is it?
I see a clock there. 8 to 8:10?
8:10.
Oh, so you're an hour behind. Okay.
But no, not really.
I don't know.
It was just, as far as, like I said, like some states, when it comes to the prostitution thing, like, I don't know about any states except for Nevada. In Nevada, it's legal in some circumstances. Like, I know there are brothels in Reno, I think, where it's totally legal. And I don't know. I think that's kind of the way it should probably be kept, because I think it's one of those gray areas constitutionally, because it's just, I don't know, but I think it would probably be safest to keep it on a state-to-state level versus federally illegal or legal.
Just because your kind of rule of thumb is it's not in the Constitution, it should be up to the state.
Precisely.
That makes sense. Well, just the last thing from me, I had a funny thing in my economics class. She was talking about what we're going to be covering, and she said, we're going to be covering like product distribution. So should it be the government's job? Should it be the private sector? And then she's like, you guys know about socialism, right? Communism. And we're like, oh yeah. And then she goes, well, if I told everyone in there right now to take the money in their pocket and give it to me and I'll redistribute it, some countries do it like that, just to kind of explain one of the concepts of socialism and stuff like that. And I sarcastically said, oh, those countries are doing great, except no one really got that it was sarcastic. And she looked at me seriously and was like, oh, no, they're not doing really well. So it'll be interesting going through the year, her thinking I'm a socialist who likes communism. And Jeremy, we'll end with you.
Well, great. I believe that as we go forward in the year, this new year in 2018, we are going to see several important events unfold, I believe. We're going to see if Trump's sort of Republican regime in quotes,
Right.
will stand, will it falter? Are we going to see better changes in our government if the Republicans are forced to really defend their positions?
Right.
If they will stick better to principles, maybe fight Trump on more spending, maybe actually cut some spending. I know, God forbid. And
Yeah.
if we will see
What's cut spending?
if we'll see
Yeah.
any newcomers to the political field. As you know, the years go on, sometimes there's dark
Oprah.
horses that come out of nowhere and become famous. So
Right.
how that goes, we'll see the new governorships. Hopefully Pennsylvania has a better governorship because our government sucks.
And we'll also see the Senate elections, and if the Democrats gain a majority once more, if they'll actually follow through with impeachment, or if that was kind of just all talk.
And we'll see if half of California secedes.
Oh, right, because they're being serious about that. It's going to take
Yeah.
them a couple months to
Yeah.
get the paperwork in order.
I hope it does. That'd be kind of funny. I'm all for
That
another
would be
star on
funny.
the flag.
Yeah, there's room. There's room. And what would they be? Western California or something? So they'd probably come
Yeah,
up with a
something
whole.
like-
Didn't they call themselves New California or something like that? It was really
Oh,
generic.
God.
I mean, come on.
They'll
Yeah,
come up with
we
a
could
better
do better
name,
than that.
hopefully. But yes,
Like
as we go forward,
New Jersey. Yeah.
as we go forward, hopefully there's better news to be had, and possibly a better Trump as we go forward, and after Trump,
Yeah.
Nikki Haley.
That'd be great. That'd be cool. All right. Well, it was good talking to you guys, and I'll see you guys next week.
Yes.
All right.
Awesome.
Peace.